Hey there, welcome back. My name is Katie and this is Louisiana Cooking and Living, and today we are going to make another gluten-free item. This day is going to be some cupcakes. We've done muffins in the past and a few other items, but today we're going to be doing some cupcakes for my daughter. If you've kind of followed along, my daughter does have an autoimmune disease and gluten gives her a migraine. She's not allergic to it, it just gives her migraines. So I've been trying different recipes to try and find something that she can have when we are getting together and she doesn't have to feel left out. We can still have dessert. So we're going to be making a gluten-free cookies and cream cupcake. Oreo does have a gluten-free cookie, and we're going to be using this for the cookies and cream part of our cupcake and our icing. And we're just going to go ahead and get started. I will leave this recipe linked in the description box. It doesn't say who it's by in my printout, but I'll leave it linked in the description box. So we're going to start off in our mixer. We're going to beat together our butter, oil, sugar until smooth and creamy. So we need 1 stick of butter. I have softened this butter. And to this, we're going to add 3 tablespoons of oil. They suggest either coconut or vegetable oil, so I'm going to use coconut oil. And then we have a cup of granulated sugar. Let me get some measuring spoons. All right, so here's our cup of sugar, our white sugar. And 4 tablespoons is 1/4 cup, and I need 3 tablespoons. So we'll do 3/4 of this. My tablespoon is dirty today, so we're going with this. All right, we're going to beat these until smooth and creamy. All right, so this is what we're looking like, just all a creamy concoction here. So now you need 3 egg whites. I'm thinking because it's to keep this cupcake kind of white, so if I get a little bit of yolk in here, I'm not going to be too upset. I don't want to waste my yolks, and I thought about just putting the whole egg in there, but we'll go with the egg whites. I might just put 1 yolk in there for that richness. Oops. My chickens haven't eaten too much of their actual chicken feed because we are letting them take over the whole garden, and so they have a lot of food to eat. And so they're not getting the oyster shells in their feed, and their shells are a little thinner right now. I think I'm going to go ahead and throw this whole 3rd egg in there to get the richness from that yolk, though. All right, we're going to go ahead and give these a mix. All right, next we're going to add our sour cream, our milk, and our vanilla. So for our sour cream, we do need 1/3 cup. This is a new package here, so I'm going to take the little tab out. I'm just going to eyeball my 1/3 cup. All right, 1/3 cup. We need a 1/2 cup of milk, so that'll be 2 of our 1/4 cups here. And then 2 teaspoons of our vanilla. Maybe a little extra vanilla there. Okay, so when the recipe says to sift together your flour and your baking soda and salt, I don't do that. I just go ahead and put my baking soda or baking powder, we're using baking powder today, and my salt right into the mixer, and then I add in my flour as it's mixing. So we need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And then the recipe calls for 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I typically add a little bit more than that because my Redmond real salt, I find you need a little bit extra. So I'm gonna go about 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. We'll give this a mix. And then to this, we're gonna go ahead and add our flour. We need 1.5 cups of our gluten-free flour. This is the King Arthur 1-for-1 flour. So here's our 1/2 cup. Mix that in. And then here's our whole cup. So we have 1.5 cups total. Scrape the sides down. It's the thing you do all through your baking, scraping sides down. All right, so now we're going to crush 6 of our gluten-free Oreos to put into our batter here. I love they came out with the pull tops on these cookies. Makes it much easier to keep them fresh. Are you a double stuffed Oreo or are you a regular Oreo kind of person? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to go ahead and use a gallon-sized Ziploc bag because we're going to be crushing more Oreos later for our icing. So I wanted to go ahead and get the bigger bag now instead of using 2 bags. And I'm just going to use my rolling pin here and give these a crush. All right, we're going to fold these in. Oops. Get a spoon. We don't want to lose any of these cookies. And kind of fold the top down. Save that to the side so we can reuse it. We'll go ahead and fold these cookie crumbs in. You just go from the bottom, pull up to the top. No vigorous stirring. All right, so that looks nice and folded. We're going to get our muffin tins. It says it makes 24 cupcakes, but it doesn't look like it's going to make that many. So let's get our muffin tins ready. All right, I do have these parchment liners that I'm going to use that I found on Amazon, so they're not dyed. We're going to go ahead and fill. I'm going to just do 1 tray for now, and we'll see how far our batter gets us. And in the bottom of each of our little parchment cups, we are going to add 1 cookie. And they fit perfectly down in there. All right, so we fit perfectly down in there. And I'm going to use my 1/4 cup scoop here to fill each of our muffin or cupcake liners. Looks like we're going to use a little bit less than a full scoop here. I guess because that cookie is taking up some of that space. Maybe you can get 24. I didn't think about the cookie taking up space in your liner. Definitely don't want to overfill and have them bake everywhere. All right, I'll go ahead and get my other pan together then. Okay, so a note, if you do make this recipe, I wish it would have noted this. You're actually going to need 2 packs of these gluten-free cookies because we need 10, let's see, we did 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 cupcakes is what we got out of this. The recipe says it makes 21. I thought it said 24. It says 21. And so we needed 21 cookies to go on the bottom. But now we need 10 more cookies to make our icing to go on top. And we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cookies left in the bag. I do have some of the black cocoa that you do use to make an Oreo cookie. And I think I'll add some of that to my icing to boost up that chocolate flavor. But you do need 2 packs of the gluten-free Oreos to make this whole recipe. So we're going to go ahead and get these in the oven. Our oven has preheated to 350 degrees, and it says they will bake for about 22 minutes. So here's our cupcakes. We'll get these in the oven. All right, so those will bake, and in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and crush up the cookies I do have, and I guess I'll throw in a little bit of extra cocoa powder and maybe some extra powdered sugar and vanilla to my bag. Well, I'll show you what I'm going to do. All right, so we have our Ziploc. I'll put our few cookies that are left in here. Let's see if we can improvise here. It says sugar, rice flour, tapioca, palm oil, cornstarch, cocoa, sugar, baking soda, chocolate. All right, so I'm just going to add, so I have this black cocoa, and I did get this off of Amazon, so I can leave this linked in the description box. I think though doing this, it's going to make my icing more black, but that'll be okay. Let me get a measuring spoon or just a regular spoon. And this is unsweetened. And I'm going to go ahead and put, maybe this is 1.5 tablespoons in here. And then I'm going to take some powdered sugar as if we had the filling. About 2 tablespoons of that. I'm making this up as we go. I'm going to add a splash of vanilla to it. And then I'm going to add a splash of that coconut oil to kind of bind it together. Maybe you could do milk if you wanted to do that. Just a splash there, probably a teaspoon. And I guess we'll give this a crush and see what we got. All right, got the rolling pin again. Let's go ahead and give this a crush and see what we end up with. Ooh, got a little of that cocoa powder on my shirt. All right, we'll just go with this, and hopefully it'll be enough. So our cupcakes have come out of the oven and they have cooled, and so it's time to go ahead and get our icing going. So the first thing we're going to add to our mixer here is 2 sticks of softened butter. Hopefully our crushed Oreos will work that we made. And then it calls for 4 ounces of cream cheese. I found this, Greek yogurt cream cheese. It says it's 4 times the protein and, or not Greek yogurt, Greek cream cheese, and half the fat. So I thought we'd give this a try. So we need half a brick of this. It's also softened. And then also, let's see, we are going to use the mixer on medium to high speed, beat together the butter and the cream cheese. So we're going to go ahead and beat those together before we start adding anything else. All right, and now we're going to add 4 cups of powdered sugar. We're going to do, it says, a half a cup at a time. I am not sifting this because we're going to have chunky cookies in here, so I'm not too worried about that. All right, so we have all those blended together. Now we're going to add a touch of salt. It's not in the recipe, but we're going to add about a half a teaspoon, quarter of a teaspoon of salt. Balance out all that sweetness from that powdered sugar. We are going to be adding about a tablespoon of heavy cream. And then we're going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm going to scrape down the sides. That powdered sugar tends to collect down in the center. So we'll scrape all that down that we can. All right, next thing it says is to add our cookies. So this is the real test, I think. All right, that's all we have in there. I think I'm going to add a little bit more cream for consistency here. It's a little thick. Alrighty. Let's give this a final stir. It is a little darker, I guess, than it would be. A little darker than it would be if it was just the crushed cookies, but I think it's going to taste great. All right. You could certainly just put this in a Ziploc bag, cut the corner off, and ice your cupcakes. But I have some piping bags here, and I'm going to use an extra large coupler, is what this is called, with my large tip here, that I thought the cookies would be able to go through this large tip and make a pretty swirl on top. So we need to cut the tip off of this. And I'll try to cut smaller than I normally think it would need. Because I can always cut more off. So I need to cut more off. You can see it's a little bit past the coupler. So we'll cut a little bit more off. That's perfect. We'll put our tip on and screw that on. These I get at Hobby Lobby, and every other week they're half price. So it's a good way to kind of build your collection if you're wanting to get into decorating cakes or cupcakes or cookies or whatever it is. All right. We'll get our icing into our bag here. Let me show you a little trick I have to help do this. They sell stands that you can get to do this. But I find I just put it in a cup like that. Just kind of swirl it around to get that down to the tip. And we are just going to go around and ice the tops of our cupcakes. What would be really cute is if you had another Oreo, cut it in half and just kind of decorate the top with that. And if you did get 2 packs of cookies to make this with, you'd have plenty left over to do that. Oh, I got a chunk of cookie there. Didn't want to go through my tip. There it goes. All right, Miss Bailey's gonna here try the cupcake with us. It's got the Oreo at the bottom, get the yummy icing on the top, and Oreos inside. I don't know how to bite it. I was trying to get some of everything in my bite. For gluten-free, how is it?
It's pretty good.
You couldn't tell it's gluten-free. It tastes really good. And the cake is soft. It's all soft inside. So yummy. I think my daughter's going to be happy with these for dessert tonight. Well, I hope you give this recipe a try. I have a gluten-free playlist I can leave over here linked. And you can check out some other gluten-free recipes. And I'll leave my logo on this side. And you can touch that and subscribe and follow along. And I'll just throw some gluten-free recipes in here and there as we go. And hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching.